All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 378 of the Restoring Rapport podcast. This is a podcast for young believers who are pursuing the goal of marriage and family and try to get married as young as possible in a healthy way according to God's design. My name is Seth Hensley. I come on twice a week, every week on Thursday and Sunday to discuss not only the benefits of getting married young, but I attempt to equip and encourage you in your pursuit of that goal. And today we're going to be asking ourselves the question, should I wait to kiss until I get married? And this is a topic that has been discussed by a lot of people in modern Christendom. And today we're going to be adding the latest opinion to the pile. So I don't know. If you find that topic interesting, be sure to stick around. And also definitely stick around if you're a young believer who's trying to get married and you're looking for the way to do that in the right way, because we talk about that a lot on this show. But without further ado, we're going to be reviewing a video entitled "Should You Wait Until Marriage to Kiss?" and it was put out on the Lila Rose podcast. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started, see what they're talking about, what they have to say, and then I'll pause it and react to it.
I want to say this was something that I remember. I had a friend who waited till marriage or his wedding day to kiss his wife, right? Mm-hmm. And we all thought, I mean, if we're being totally honest here, it's like we probably were like, that's weird. Like, that's
over the top.
That's admirable, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's lovely, but
you
it
have
feels
to have some like, how do you look? What if they're bad? And you know the answer, like even in your head, you're like, what if they're a bad kisser? It's like, well, first off, like, wouldn't you rather have morals and assume that you could actually like get better at something like that? But it was so interesting that I even had the reaction like, that's extreme, right? And then I I ended up dating a girl who I just like had one of the best experiences, and it was like I was like, hey, I don't want to have any sort of inkling of any sort of, and it was very short. It was only a couple months, and it was such a cool. We just would hang out and get to know each other, and we learned very quickly. Oh, we want different things, right?
Yes,
and and I remember when we like parted ways, it was like a day of like, oh, bummer, I can't like call and talk like, and it was, and now we're great friends, like, and it's literally.
I would say here, I don't know if this guy, I don't know anything about this guy. I don't even know who this guy is because she's just having this guy on the show to discuss the issue. But I will say that I have a very specific way that I would recommend dating. And that's the way that I ended up dating my wife that I married today. But I have done it in other ways before, and I don't like the way that I did it. So let me just tell you guys here, I think you should treat dating more like engagement. And that you should not label a relationship or define, have a DTR, enter a committed relationship, become boyfriend and girlfriend, whatever you want to call that. I don't think you should do that at all until you're actually sure you're going to marry this person. And if there's little doubts in your mind about whether or not that's going to happen, I think that you should just keep hanging out with him. If you're still figuring out if you want to marry them, then you shouldn't start moving towards the goal of marriage with them, if that makes sense. I think you should just, keep spending time together in whatever context, either in a group or going out on dates. But there's a big difference between that and actually dating. Dating is when you become boyfriend and girlfriend, you become committed, you define the relationship, you say, all right, we're going to do this thing together. We're not going to leave each other, and we're moving towards the goal of marriage. That's what dating is. If you remove, if you enter that before you actually know whether you're going to marry this person, then, I mean, somebody's backing out and somebody's getting their heart broken, or it just kind of defeats the whole purpose. So that's what I would say you should do as far as entering dating here. But so in other words, I don't really like the way that he said there that and again, people disagree with me sometimes on this, and that's fine. But he has their own opinion. I'm just adding my opinion to the pile. But this is something that I believe would have made my life a lot better had I done it sooner rather than later. And that is treated dating more seriously and treated it like the road to marriage and not like an experiment to find out whether or not I wanted to marry somebody. That should have been done before you entered the DTR relationship. So I don't think that the couple weeks thing, like, I don't think you should have a relationship that lasts a couple weeks, because if you have a relationship that lasts a couple weeks, what that says is I entered this to find out, and I found out I didn't want to marry this person. It's like, you should have done that. You should have just done that 2 weeks before you started dating, instead of dating and then finding that out 2 weeks into this relationship. It's unnecessary, and it gets emotions involved, and it's kind of dishonest saying like, okay, I'm moving towards the goal of marriage with you, but actually what I'm doing is I'm figuring out whether or not this is going to work. So, that kind of thing should have been done before before there was any kind of commitment or labeling made. I don't know if this is making any sense to you guys, but that's what I think. So I don't think you should ever necessarily find yourself in a situation where you find out you don't want to marry somebody 2 weeks into a relationship. I think that's that's unnecessary. You don't have to do that.
And I was like, oh, what if like God, I would have said this sounds insane, right? And I'm not judging anyone because I was like, wow, I've definitely like in every other relationship I've kissed and it's been like, and it hasn't worked out. So I was like, oh, let's just run the numbers, and it was such a remarkable experience. And I will say,
but he seems to be drawing a connection there between like his relationships not working out and the fact that he kissed in those relationships. I don't think that was probably the cause. I think a more likely cause, based on the 30 seconds that I've heard this guy talking, is the fact that he's approaching dating as an experiment instead of as a commitment. That's the reason that his relationships are ending quickly. And so to connect that somehow to kissing, I think is a logical, just a fallacy. The problem here sounds like, again, I don't know this guy. He could have a better dating worldview than I do. I'm just saying, like, based on the 30 seconds I've heard, I would not do what he's recommending here in this particular case, because he's treating dating like an experiment and not a commitment. That's why it's ending over and over and he's missing over and over. It's because he's just sort of guessing, and he's just playing a figure it out game instead of a commitment game.
Turning that side of the brain off, right, of any sort of physical inclination, and just saying, hey, I'm going to focus on just like get to know you as a friend and a person, because that, as anybody knows, that can be turned on like that, right? And so it's like, and also people would ask me like, how do you know if you're attracted? Like, oh, I can.
What you want to do is save hundreds.
Did you guys notice that guy on the right? When this ad goes off, I'll show you. He's like wanting to say something every 5 seconds. He's like doing this hand motion thing. Whenever people do that, it's like they're wanting to say something, but they don't want to interrupt. It's so funny. Here he is.
Right, I brought Sidecar donuts. I don't need to try one of them to know that they're delicious, right? Yes. Thank you, Sidecar.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just was like, I was sick to your chase dating. I wonder if that's what I was talking about, because I just experimented with that recently, and I was
there.
It
is again.
It was such a beautiful experience.
You did it again.
Learned something like, hey, not for each other.
I'm getting so excited about what I'm going to say. Okay, look.
I can tell.
Okay, this is based on what I've read of like just traditional dating, but also paired with science. So with neuroscience, I read the book called Hooked, and I think
it's a good one.
It's a great book, right? And like I think there's a part where it talks about how couples that actually experienced sexual relations, right, have a harder time. The breakup hurts a lot more. The point is that there are chemicals that are exchanged when you engage in some physical acts that are like can be sexual.
Oxytocin.
Now, I'm thinking to myself, have there been studies that show that with kissing? Like with even mere, like, French kissing, or even merely like in the lips, just pecking. So I wonder, I'm like, like, I don't know if I'm hesitant to say if it's a sin or not to like peck in the lips or whatever. I'm hesitant. I don't think
if you go to Italy, you're sinning every time you meet a grandmother.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like,
well, there you go.
Kisses.
Yeah,
So,
and that's where I would be like, okay, maybe that's like that's like over the top, right?
like in my family, it's like, mwah, mwah, like, like,
but
you kissed your brother.
Of course.
But you know the line of your heart.
Not like that.
I think you're getting what I'm saying though. Like there can be stuff that maybe like. I think French would be like French kissing would be more of like a thing of like, okay, yeah, that's clearly something that's like, more like explicitly romantic.
You mentioned oxytocin. Tell us about that.
Yes, go for it.
Yes, no, 100%. I can't say that I agree with like no physical contact whatsoever when dating.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
No, and I don't even think you're saying that you agree with that. I think we're just presenting it as a topic, but I just want to, I work with a lot of
Before she gets to her point here, I think what I'm going to guess, I haven't seen this video, but I think what they're going to go on to say here, if I had to guess based on the direction this conversation is going, is that you need to know there is a bonding process that occurs with physical contact. And so if there's a possibility that you are going to bail on this relationship, which again, I don't think you should, because you should have already done that calculation before you entered it rather than after. Or if you think there's a possibility your partner will bail on this relationship, which again, I don't think you should have that doubt, because you should have gone through that with your partner before rather than after you started dating, then you need to be aware that there's a bonding process that has occurred if you have engaged in any kind of physical contact, and that is going to make any kind of separation a very miserable experience for both of you, or at least one of you. And so, just be very, very aware of that. And I do want you to know that, like, what's the word? Like when you cross lines like this, when you cross these emotional lines, these physical lines, and not even immoral lines. Like I would say the scripture is very clear that sexual fornication, sex outside of marriage is wrong. But like even when you get to steps way before that, like just hugging or holding hands or kissing or things like this, you need to understand that when you do that, there is a bond that is being woven, immediately and instantaneously as that process is happening. So it basically, what the point is, that if you're weaving these bonds with somebody that are designed to be a reinforcement and a strength to your long-term and lasting permanent relationship, and you're treating that relationship like an experiment, you can see where the danger is coming here, because you're making these bonds. It's like, okay, here's what it's like doing. It's like taking a truck, two trucks, okay, and you're binding them together, okay? You're making them a stronger whole unit, which is awesome as long as both of the trucks are either going the same direction or staying with each other in the same spot. When it's not awesome is when the trucks decide to start moving in opposite directions, okay? And now you have all these chains around them. That's going to be a lot more explosive and violent and damaging to both sides if severance is actually completed. Do you know what I'm saying? So there are bonds being laid that are making it more difficult to leave your partner, which is good, right? Because ideally you want it to be, you want your bond to be really tight. You don't want there to be nothing there. You don't want there to be no bond at all. You want there to be a closeness that can't be broken, because you're going to be with this person forever, right? So that's one of the purposes of, this physical contact and exchange. But again, the problem is, if people treat dating like an experiment, and this is one of the reasons I've said this over and over and over, if you're dating somebody and you're communicating to them that I'm bonding myself to you, I'm making it harder and harder for us to leave each other. I'm communicating to you with my actions, both my actions and my words, but actions speak louder than my words. So I'm communicating to you with my actions by holding your hand, by kissing, by hugging you, by cuddling with you, that I'm going to be in this for the long haul, and then I'm actually just figuring out whether I want to or not. That's an incredibly dangerous relationship for one or both parties to be in, because it could end at any moment and leave both sides in a huge state of disrepair, because they treated dating like an experiment instead of a commitment. Okay, and this is why I think that you should be very, very. You don't enter commitments lightly. You enter commitments seriously. Okay, you enter commitments seriously, and you don't go back on your word. Once you've committed, you just commit, guys. That's all there is to it. A lot of people are scared of commitment, or they're afraid that something better will come down the line if they wait. And it's like, if you're still in that life situation, if you're still in the season of like, trying to get the best thing for yourself, and just ignoring good things because you're trying to wait for something better. If I'm not necessarily slamming that, but I do think there is a paralysis of choice, and a paralysis of entitlement, and a paralysis of always assuming there's something better down the line when God has placed a beautiful gift in your lap. But let's assume you're still there. You're still like, oh, there's got to be something better coming. Because there's something better coming, I'm not going to say yes to this good thing right now. It's like, okay, go ahead, do that thing, but don't communicate to the other person that you're not going anywhere, if that makes sense, with your words or your actions. And again, they're going to get into the oxytocin discussion here. That's what physical interaction does. It binds two people together. There's no getting around that. You can't just remove your emotions from a physical experience like this. And I'm not talking about just sexual intimacy or intercourse. I'm talking about like literally holding hands with a romantic partner, hugging with a romantic partner, cuddling with a romantic partner, kissing with a romantic partner is binding you together at a very, very deep level. Okay. And so you need to be aware of that. Again, don't do it if you're treating dating like an experiment, which I don't think you should do anyway. But if you aren't treating dating like an experiment, if you are treating dating like a commitment, right? If you're treating dating like a commitment, then I think it's a great thing for your relationship. And that's why this question is like, everybody has such a big, opinion on it. It's and it really goes back to what they believe dating is. If you believe dating is an experiment to find out whether or not you want to marry somebody, any kind of physical interaction is a terrible idea, because it's going to make the any kind of separation process that very well likely or very could likely occur very painful for both sides. But if you're treating dating like a commitment, then it's the physical interaction is actually reinforcing your bond with one another, which is something you want in a long-term and permanent relationship.
A lot of secular clients and a lot of Christian and Catholic clients, as I've stated before. Years ago, when we had first started doing the work that we do, when we first started our company, we kept on getting these women that were in their late 30s. And they were like, I don't know what is going wrong, but and they kept on coming in with the same issue. They would date a guy for a couple months and then it would end. The guy would lose interest. The guy would.
Okay. Again, here in this situation, there may be many people at fault, but I definitely know there's at least one person at fault there, because you could have a guy bailing on a relationship that was supposed to be committed. But again, that's how I would do it. Like, I don't know if these people approach dating that way. They might approach dating as an experiment. And if they do, kudos to them. Do whatever. Like, but that's if you're listening to me and you agree with me, that's great. But if you disagree with me, then you just want to click off, because this is just my life experience here that I'm sharing with you. So, yeah, I think that it's been done wrong in that scenario. Again, notice the timeline on it. They were like, we dated a couple months. I'm like, why did you date just a couple months? It's like having a 9-day marriage and then you get a divorce. Like literally just a couple days ago, you said that, hey, yeah, we're gonna get married one day. We're gonna commit to each other. We're gonna stick it out through thick and thin. We're gonna make this last. We're gonna go through the hard stuff together. We're not gonna leave each other. All that was said if you did do dating according to the way I suggest. And then now you're bailing? Like, what the crap is this? It's like, you need to have, okay. But compare that to the situation. You enter dating, you say, yeah, we're going to date. And you don't really define that. You don't say what that means. You don't define it as a commitment to marriage, as a moving towards marriage, as a sticking with each other no matter what, as a no, I'm not leaving no matter what. And instead you enter it as just like we'll see if this works out. I'll find out whether I want to marry you or not. And then no wonder it's ending. Because like, yeah, you found out you didn't want to marry him. You know, you could have saved all this heartbreak by just not entering some kind of DTR and committed serious relationship. You know what I'm saying? So just be very, very, very clear on how you're doing this. Like, and if you are dating as an experiment, please don't. Like, guys and girls, I cannot understate this. Like, if you are going against my advice, which is fine, whatever. Who am I? Just a guy on the internet, you know? But I have had a life experience, and I would very strongly advise you against that. But if you are going against my advice and you're treating dating as an experiment, then please don't. I mean, communicate to the other person that you're sticking around through your physical actions or through any kind of bonding process that bonds you together beyond a level where you can, you know, separate without extreme damage to both parties. Like, it's kind of common sense, really. It's like, you should know, okay, if it's a fact that physical interaction binds you to a person, which it is, I think scientifically that's unarguable, pretty much, in a romantic context anyway. And I would say on every context, but in the romantic context, it's stronger than anything, I would say. Then you really have you're just setting yourself up for a train wreck by engaging in physical interactions with someone you're romantically interested in who has not communicated their intention and their commitment to never leave you, right? Or maybe you haven't committed that to them and you're just, you know, you're setting yourself up for a train wreck and them up for a train wreck by, you know, treating dating as an experiment, something temporary that could end at any moment. And you're, you know, binding yourself to this person in a very, you know, close way. That just seems kind of like a terrible situation to find yourself in.
Pull away. And these were not Catholic, like they were not devout Catholic women, devout Christian women. So then we dug in a little more and we said, okay, like what's going on? And they said, well, I slept with him. And, you know, like society says it's the, you know, this is modern culture. You know, we're very blessed in that we're surrounding ourselves. And that's why community is so wonderful, because we can surround ourselves with like-minded people. But a lot of people in modern culture, a majority of society, this is the norm. You know, they're sleeping together
most of my life.
Yeah, they're sleeping together after, you know, a couple months, and it's weird if they don't. And then the man loses interest and pulls away, and the woman then is bonded. She releases oxytocin. I talked to Lila about this. We did more of a deep dive.
Go watch that episode. It's good.
Yeah, but like also like this is not a woman specific issue. Like as a man, I've been absolutely destroyed by relationships that ended because I engaged not even sexually, but physically with people in ways that were beyond the level that I trusted them. Okay. And so, like, this is not just an issue that affects women only. I feel like they need to clarify that here. And also, like, what's the word? This is just, it's frustrating because this is entirely preventable. How you approach and define dating is incredibly important. That moment, that conversation, that DTR people call it, of where you sit down with your romantic partner and you no longer are figuring out whether or not you want to marry them. You figured it out and you're wanting to commit to them, right? And you're wanting to lock in. You're wanting to, people use all kinds of language, exclusively date or whatever the language is that they use nowadays. It's like when you have done the discovery process, you're done with the discovery and you're looking to move into a commitment with this person. That conversation you've got to be very clear and the other person's got to be very clear. And then again, I think that once you do that, that's when it becomes safe to engage with each other and holding hands, kissing, cuddling, all that stuff, because that's when you know that your partner's not going to just dip because they got cold feet or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's got to be that explicit given word. Like, I'm not going anywhere no matter what. You and I are together for the rest of our lives. Starting now, we're moving towards the goal of marriage by basically backing up what we're saying now with our actions, and nothing is going to separate us. Okay. Once you've said that, it's a lot safer. It's a lot safer to, and I would even argue that it's actually good for your relationship to engage in holding hands, kissing, cuddling, things like that. Because again, you're bonding to each other and reinforcing the commitment that you've already made instead of bonding to each other in an experiment that you might make temporary. Those are extremely I hope you see that distinction that I'm drawing, or I'm trying to draw for you here pretty clearly at this point.
Yeah, in our fun episode. But I didn't mean that sarcastically. It was very fun. I had a really fun time.
It was fun.
It was a
fun episode on oxytocin.
I don't know why it
Check
came
it
out so
out.
sarcastically. But men release a totally different cocktail of hormones that doesn't allow them to bond.
Testosterone.
But it
What?
is
Oh my
really
gosh.
important, I believe.
That's not true. Okay, well, maybe it is true scientifically or whatever, but men still bond. It's just the bonding process might be different. That's what I think she should have said, because like men still bond to women through physical interaction. And every time I say that, people are like, "Oh, he's talking about sex only." It's like, no, I'm not. I'm talking about any kind of romantic touch, any kind. Literally, it could be anything. It could be brushing shoulders, holding hands, cuddling, any kind, like kissing, anything. Literally anything, any kind of contact that you have with one another. Anytime any part of your bodies are in contact with one another, there's a bonding that's occurring there. Okay. So now that I've defined that, I want you to know that affects, like, it's not that men are invincible to this and can just go around, holding hands and kissing all these women and withdrawing and suffering no consequence. Like, that is a lie that makes men seem like predators, kind of, and not predators might be the wrong word. Like, people who have nothing to lose and therefore can just, if they're selfish, go around destroying everybody and everything and they don't have to worry about themselves. That's not how men are. Okay. They're not, yes, the bonding process might be different, but there is bonding that occurs and I can tell you this from personal experience, on the level of, or for a man, on the level of physical contact. Okay.
In the courtship process to build oxytocin together, because you're co-regulating and it's really important to, when you're even giving each other a hug, there's studies that show scientifically it lowers stress hormones, and also how you can tell if you're not in a great relationship is if your cortisol levels are very high. And a lot of times people that are in toxic relationships, there's a trend right now where you can literally see girls are showing pictures like, oh, I would date again, but this is how I looked when I was dating the last time. And it's the woman's bloated, has all of this acne. So, but then when you're in a healthy relationship, your skin is clear, your stress hormones are lowered. So a lot of this, it's a combination of physical, not intimacy in that you're sleeping together, because that is the ultimate, should be safe for marriage. It's beautiful. But even if I am a big believer in physical contact when you're dating, because it does help to build that bond and to
So
build
you're
that
saying
connection.
oxytocin?
Okay, so like I agree with like what she's saying, but like what they're not clarifying is what they mean by dating. Like you have to, again, this entire thing falls apart. Like she just said there, I'm a big fan of physical contact because it builds a bond, a romantic bond. It's like, okay, me too. What kind of relationship are you? Are you in a like a is the as Jesus would say, like when he says the man who builds his house on the sand, his whole place gets washed away, but the guy who builds his house on the rock, his house withstood the storm, right? Because he built it on the right foundation. This is true in dating. Okay, you build your dating relationship on the bedrock that is, I'm not going anywhere, and I am from this point on, we're getting married. Like, period. If you build your relationship on that, then my gosh, yeah, it's great for your relationship because you're bonding together. Okay, and then if you build it on the sand that is, you know, discovery, and the sand that is experimentation, and the sand that is figure out what I want, then my gosh, yeah, you're in the slightest wind can blow over your entire house and your life is in shambles. Okay. Because you bonded yourself together with this person on a poor foundation. And, following that line of logic, you might think like, well, what's wrong with having sex then if I'm starting to date this person and I have committed to them and they have committed to me? Like, what's wrong with us having sex? Because isn't that good for our bond too? And I'm like, yeah, it is, but you haven't followed through with your actions on what your words stated. And so there's still, and that's why I think Scripture says it's wrong. I mean, honestly, though, it doesn't matter why I think Scripture says it's wrong. It's clearly described as wrong in Scripture. And so if you are a young believer pursuing the goal of marriage and family according to God's design, and you're trying to do it God's way, and you believe Scripture is inspired by God and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, then you really have no choice but to do it, even if you don't really understand it. But just giving you a thought, I think one of the reasons that sex before marriage is wrong is because you haven't followed through with your actions yet. And not only that, but because there's external accountability too. So you have social witnesses who are witnessing your promise to each other instead of just you two, which I think you should do in dating anyway as well. Like when you start this committed dating relationship, it shouldn't be a private thing. Like it should be extremely public and extremely visible by a lot of people, including people who can hold you accountable and who are close to you and who will hold you accountable. Like, something that when I entered a committed relationship with my wife, something that I really wanted to have was people in my life who would literally call me on my bullcrap if I tried to leave Lainey, because that's a gift, man. If you have somebody who could literally look you in the eye and say, okay, I'm hearing you say you want to leave your significant other right now, but I remember the day when you looked her in the face and said, I'm never going to leave you for any reason. So can you explain that? Why are you doing that? To have somebody who would say that to me is that's a really big reinforcement to your, not that I would never leave Lainey, but I'm saying I wanted people who would do that because that's the whole point of having witnesses, okay, is another level of protection for that relationship, right? It's to say, it's to call you on it, to say, hey, you made a vow to this person and you're standing right in front of me on this day breaking it. Explain that. Like, that's the accountability that I wanted. Okay. So I think that you should have that in dating as well as marriage. But my point is, marriage is the best form of showing commitment with not just your words, but your actions, that you're in it for the long haul, because you are heaping upon yourself consequences for leaving the marriage should you try to. So it's really saying, I'm embracing all kinds of terrible things on my life if I even try to withdraw from this union, and I'm willing to do that. Therefore, you can trust me, because I'm not just saying with my words that I'm going to stick around forever, but my actions are also in line with that. Like, words and actions are both very important, and they both need to be aligned, and they both need to be rock solid. Like, you need to really, because this kind of relationship is the one that you need to have the most trust with in your whole life. Okay, and so, yeah, I've really liked this episode so far. Let's try and finish it out real
Oxytocin
quick.
is released in hugging?
Imagine being able to build an app.
Oh dang! As soon as I started resuming, I got an ad. I need to do YouTube Premium, so I don't get these anymore. But
I think
it's
what
all
the
good.
point is you're making.
Dog released it if you pet your dog.
I think
dude.
the
no,
I think the
seriously,
point you're
dog will
making,
do
which
it.
is such a good one. I'm
nice,
curious,
nice.
your guys' take on that is basically it's an idea of non-sexual physical affection.
Yes.
Where it's
Okay.
not like this is just to turn each other on. This is not a sexual thing that we're doing here. This is an affectionate thing. And obviously there's some nuance there, but largely speaking, you can give someone a hug. You can give someone, like, I do believe there's such a thing as a chaste kiss. Now you got to be mindful. There's a lot of nuances here in gray areas, but
Yeah, kind of what good
and
kind of
having
kiss,
your
what kind of hug.
boundaries.
Like there's
Yeah,
nuances
But
on
that's
that
also
too,
why
yeah.
it's
you
important.
can hold
for-
hands,
Yeah,
you
for-
can sit close and cuddle. Like
No,
this-
we can't hold
You
hands.
said it's to grow. So I'm curious about this, right? And again, I totally am of the mindset, like, everyone knows their line and what, for me, it was an experiment because I was like, oh, like I just, I know that those things can escalate and crowd. I was like, I don't want anything to cloud my judgment, right? And we all know, we maybe all of us have dated someone where we just have crazy chemistry, and it makes you completely overlook like the fact that, hey, we actually don't have the same value sets or whatever, right? And I see that everywhere, and I was like, you know what? I have some of my friends who did this, and they have amazing marriages, and it's like, okay, I'll let you. And it added such a level of clarity that I was like, because even then, I mean, I'm still a little kid, like hold someone's hand, and I'm just like it just like freaks out. But you mentioned something that you encourage physical contact to help bond, but it's like I'm asking the question: shouldn't we figure out whether we should try and bond to that person even first?
Correct, but that's exactly what you're not doing by dating somebody. I want to going on dates is just getting to know somebody. That's fine. Once you've DTR'd, once you've had that conversation, we're boyfriend and girlfriend now, we're not leaving each other. However you describe that, that's the important conversation, because that's where there's a commitment being made. That's where there's a promise being given. That's where there's an indication of where your heart stands in relation to this person. That's where you're telling them that, right? And so that conversation is incredibly important. You don't want to leave that conversation with questions. Okay. Like what he's describing here, he's exactly right. You should absolutely know whether or not this is a permanent relationship or an experiment before you engage in these physical acts. But what I think he's not done is, I don't think he's done that in his past. And I understand, because I've not done this before either. And it always ended in flames because, I was binding myself to people that were treating me like an experiment, basically. Okay. And gosh, guys, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. Okay. And that's why, I just think this is very important here. The question let's see what they say. This is a very, very important question he just asked.
Like, because
Oh,
like to
that's
see,
a good
100%.
point.
But a relationship is not just logic, and it's not just it's head and the heart. It's the melding between the head and the heart. Again, listen. I'm a matchmaker.
you're the professional.
I'm a
Yeah,
matchmaker.
you're the professional,
So, but
yeah,
I
yeah.
also, I'm not a priest. I'm not a,
We're just picking your brain here. We're just trying
I'm
to
just
see,
giving
like-
you my perspective.
She's not a priest.
I'm not a priest. I'm not a nun.
Be the first
I'm not a
female
priest. I know, right?
Okay.
Plus, maybe I'll be a saint one day. Maybe I learned that that's our goal, is to like all strive for sainthood, which I had no idea that was my goal. Which,
She's getting deep in her Catholic faith.
I know I have a lot of work to do, let me tell you. But all that to say, from my perspective, I think that if I am not an extremist person when it comes to these things, I just have seen when you have strong boundaries, and if exactly like you had said for yourself, that you cannot think clearly if you are having any kind of, kissing or anything like that. Amazing. I have no judgment whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think for 80% of the population, I would say it's good to see if you can be together, not in a sexual way.
What's everyone's boundary?
Okay, she did not. Oh gosh, she did not answer the question. Okay, that was an incredibly important question that guy just asked that needs a very clear answer. So I'm going to give it right here. You do have to know. Okay, you do have to know if your partner is going to leave. You do have to know if it's an experiment or a commitment before you start doing these physical acts. Okay, it's incredibly important. It's incredibly important. It's the difference between a heartbreak and joy that you can't imagine. You've got to know that, all right? And so I think the way to do that, and the way I'm proposing to you to do that, is to, first of all, for yourself, know beyond the shadow of a doubt, and don't commit to somebody who you're not sure about. And secondly, don't commit to anybody who does not show that same level of investment, commitment, attraction, everything to you. Okay, that's the key. And if you have those, like if you're in a situation one day where you sit down with a girl and you're like, you've been going on dates for a while, or this works, by the way, if you sit down with a guy too, it's the same principle. It's the same exact concept. I'm just using the girls scenario because most of the show's listeners are men. Okay. So let's say you're sitting down with a woman that you've gone on many, many dates with. You're incredibly attracted to her. You match her values. She has an awesome relationship with the Lord. You're both moving in the same direction. You both want to get married. You both want a marriage and children and a family. And you've gotten all the big issues out of the way. Okay. And you're trying to like enter a committed relationship with this girl. You're trying to lock in. You're trying to keep other guys away. You're trying to claim her to yourself. You're trying to establish a bond between you two that is not between her and anybody else. If you're trying to do that, then when you propose that to her, when you ask her that question, when you say, "Hey, I would like to enter a committed relationship with you to get married," you need to use those words. Okay, I would like to enter a committed relationship with you to get married, and you need to say it like this: I don't treat dating as an experiment to find out whether or not we want to get married. I've already done that. Okay, I've already decided whether or not I want to marry you, and my answer is an emphatic yes. And I'm asking you, okay, if you are willing to give me that same answer and move towards the goal of marriage with me. That's the kind of the conversation you need to have. Okay. And if she is able to, without hesitation and very clearly, and, you're not perceiving any doubts on her end to say, absolutely, I feel the same way about you. I've prayed about it. I've asked the Lord about it. I've asked my community about it. I've asked my mentors about it. I've done the work to, find something like this. I'm all about this. I'm committing to you 100%, nobody else, until we get married. And then from then on into the future, forever, I'm not leaving for any reason. If she says that, my gosh, dude, you jump into that marriage and you never look back, or that dating relationship, you never look back. You hold hands, you cuddle, you kiss, all that. I'm not saying you should have premarital sex, but those were the things I'm saying you should do, because it's good for your connection. Okay. It's good for your connection. But man, if you're in that situation and you say that to her and she's like, yeah, I'm whatever the Lord wants, I'm going to do. I'm here as long as God doesn't tell me to leave. I'm right now I want to. We'll see what the future holds, or we'll see what happens, or let's just see where this goes. She gives you any kind of vague answer like that. Do not either A, enter any kind of committed relationship with her, or B, and here's the thing, she'll try to do it. Like, there are women out there, guys, who will say, like, I don't know what I want. I'm just kind of figuring it out. I like you right now. I don't know about in the future. And they'll enter a committed relationship with you to get married without knowing. I mean, it blows my mind that people will do that. And it's not just women, it's guys too that will do this. Okay. You've got and don't let yourself do that with him. If they're wanting to start dating with you, like start having a serious relationship with you and an intimate relationship with you, and they have not made any kind of commitment, then you've got to be able to say, I'm sorry, we're not going any further into this until you match me an interest, investment, commitment level, because I've seen this end in flames before and I'm not going to do it again. Okay. You've got to be able to say no there. All right. Because what they're doing is they're advertising to you where they stand. Like, I found most of the time people are honest about this. Now, maybe sometimes they lie and stuff, and that gets into all kinds of, murky water, and I don't know how to help you there. But when they're being honest with you and you sense that honesty and there's no, red flags or anything, they're telling you where they're at, man. So it's kind of your fault if you enter a committed relationship with this person who's clearly not committed to you, because you're doing it, man. You don't have to do that. You can say, no, I'm not going to enter this committed relationship with you. Let's just keep, hanging out or whatever. But I'm not going to, I'm not going to, say that we're going to get married and start treating you like we're going to get married if you don't even know that yet. And I do. Like, that's a recipe for disaster. That's an emotionally exhausting relationship to be in. It's one where you feel very unloved. Okay. And that often, I would say like 9 times out of 10, maybe 10 times out of 10, ends in flames, because that person ends up leaving you because, of course, they are going to, because they weren't sure from the beginning. Like, there's nothing more attractive in a woman or a man than having a partner who is convicted by the Holy Spirit, and who is just no doubts in his or her mind that he or she wants to spend the rest of his or her life with you. That's the real thing, guys. And so, yeah, just don't take any less. Don't take any less. Don't enter any kind of relationship where there's not that present. And even if you do, please, please, please don't bind yourself to people physically in any kind of way. Holding hands, kissing, hugging, touching, cuddling, all that. If there's not that, if you're not confident, and if you know, at that point, I would say you're not doing dating the way I would suggest anyway. But I'm just trying to basically prevent heartbreak for you. So thank you guys for listening today. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have, reach out and let me know what you thought through the YouTube comments or Facebook and Instagram. You can message the show with your thoughts. This was a pretty heavy episode and one that everybody's got a hot take on. So definitely know what your thoughts were. If you thought I was right or if you thought I was wrong, would love to hear that. Please be respectful in your comments, though. If I show respect to you, I would like you to show the same. Now I know everybody doesn't always go by that, but whatever. But thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy your day. I hope you enjoy whenever you're listening to this. I hope you enjoy whatever you're doing. And I will talk to you guys next time.